Hi, I want to talk today a little bit about a mother's love for her children, and especially around the news this week about the court case that's come out from the killing of Henry Novak last year and the tragic circumstances around his death. But the part that I want to focus on today is a really unusual aspect in that these two Sikh brothers who were responsible, one specifically for the stabbing, but the other one for also being one of the aggressors and lying to the police, not getting help for the victim, and actually just exacerbating his death. There was an added factor that came out of this. Now, the incident happened late last year, but part of that is that their mother came to the scene and removed a ceremonial knife, which is quite a substantial length, a 21 centimetre blade. Now, there are video clips where the killer had actually been carrying this mounted across his chest on a belt. So it wasn't even a concealed weapon, and there is evidence that he was facing the victim wearing this blade. Now, first of all, that is a total disregard to the law to even go out carrying an open blade like that, and it was definitely above any legal length. So what would create a teen or a young adult such as him to want to go out at night carrying a blade like this? And this speaks to a lot of deeper societal fears, but also culture within their religion, within their family. Now, there are, I've very clearly seen another video today, which is about a Sikh who's speaking up that Sikhs in Britain are expected to abide by the law. If they want to carry the kirpan, as it's called, or kirpan, the ceremonial blade, they should carry a symbol of it, but only if they're baptized, not because they declare themselves Sikh and wear a turban, but because they've actually baptized and follow the rules of the law, the rules of the religion, as well as the rules of the law. But it should be symbolism, not a real blade. And that is what ensures everybody's safety. And the symbolism is about protecting honour and protecting the oppressed and things like that. So the part about the mother, why I want to talk about this, so that was just filling in some background there, is that the mother came to the scene of the crime and removed the blade. She hadn't been told at the point, from what we understand, that somebody had been stabbed with the blade. But even so, she removed the blade from the scene of a crime. And as such, she has remained in custody since last year. Now, the photographs they've shown, it doesn't say anything about her state, but the photographs that they show, to me, is something deep going on in the background. Because of apparent swellings or scarring on her face, which may be from childhood, they may be from the last year, who knows? We don't know where they're from, but she's clearly got some kind of scarring and swellings, like she's had a bit of a beating somewhere in life. But I don't know the background behind that. But something about that tells me there's more of a background story than her merely coming out to protect her children. However, this is where I want to pick this up. What would you do to protect your child, even if you don't know what's going on? And look at the risk it's put her at, as she has now been remanded in custody since last year. Now, why would this matter to me as a mum? Well, my name is Kay Reeve and I am an emotional awareness expert. And this comes from, my son was, my son was, I'm trying to think of the word now, ordained in 2007, so nearly 20 years ago, 19 years ago. And by all sense of the word, is a Christian. So do we expect them to follow the law and abide by their religion? Yeah, but even then, with or without that, just as a human rights perspective, as a mum, I saw my son grow up through teenage depression, being suicidal for many years, but also a phase he went through where he was very aggressive, angry at the world, furious that society had given us this culture where people with neurodiversity couldn't fit in, and it was hard for teens to go out and get a job and not feel included. And he had all of that anger against the world around him in a very similar way to these Sikhs who are carrying knives out in the streets to protect themselves and their culture. So it's being made out like it's this cultural protection, but actually it is a wider risk across any religion or anyone without religion. So if we take away the religious aspect and look at it as this is, you know, a couple of young men in this instance, but for me, I had a young man who was very angry like that. And either I could protect him or I could threaten him, whatever I could do, you know. But I chose to support and nurture my son through all of that. And yes, of course, you want to protect your child, not see them getting in trouble and getting arrested. But rather than covering anything up, one of the things that I had done with him was set very clear boundaries. And this sounds strange saying this, but from even his early teens, when I saw this propensity for him to get very angry at the world and lash out, I made it very clear to him that there is a boundary where I would not protect him. So he had to be responsible for himself. And I'd always said, I will support you through anything, but if you overstep the law and you cause harm, I cannot protect you at that point. And I'd always made that very clear, that if it came to it, I would even be the one to call the police if I knew he'd done harm to anybody, because I wanted to make sure that he understood that he couldn't just get away with anything because he was angry, because he was wound up, because he was neurodivergent, because he was suicidal, right? Because he was being threatened by other teenagers down the pub or other young adults, that he couldn't get away with beating them up because they'd threatened him or vice versa. I wanted him to know those boundaries existed and I was holding him to them. Now, that is not easy to do, and I get it that for some parents, the teenagers can be a risk to the parent themselves and can threaten the adults. And this can happen if that threatening behaviour has been enabled over the years, rather than set hard boundaries around it. And so I just wanted to kind of bring this out in that I'm not over-analysing it and saying this was right, this was wrong, that it should have happened this way. So I'm not going to analyse what should have happened at the scene of the killing with Henry Novak, or with the two boys, or with the mother, and I'm not going to make a specific judgment about what she did that night, because from what I understand, she didn't know about the stabbing until after she took the knife. But at the same point, she must have known the law, that they shouldn't have had the knife out there, and yet she concealed that by taking it away from the scene. So there is something there where there were some boundaries that were not quite upheld in sort of the clearest situation. But that's not for me to judge or anything. That is for the courts to judge. It's merely my reflection on raising young men and teens, that this can happen in any situation. It's not just a religious thing. It's natural for teenagers and young adults to go through depression, to go through cultural beliefs, cultural disbeliefs, right? And to feel angry at society, to feel angry at families, the education system. I mean, goodness me, there was another thing on the news last week with a number of teenage boys all being arrested for burning down a school, right? So here essentially is another very similar situation, although the outcome is different, burning down a school rather than a stabbing. When we look deeper at it, it is a societal issue where young men, as much as young women, young men tend to go through this phase where they're like stags rutting, you know, and they have natural hormonal reactions in their bodies that put them in like fight mode. So the question is how we can help break that cycle of letting them go through that alone, letting them go through that without understanding and support, doing it in a way that whatever religion or non-religion they're involved with in their society, their family, their education system and their employment, that they have the support they need to integrate into adult life safely. And that is where mums are powerful, right? And fathers. I'm not saying fathers are not too, because we are, and all leaders. But mums are very often the closest to our children or to our sons, right? Very often we're the ones who they will turn to talk to, or if not, we need to be. We're the ones where we need to be able to give them a safe space to talk, to be able to listen to what their concerns are, what their fears are, what their fights are that they want to go out and fight, so we can catch them and guide them in a better direction, right? This is where mums have a phenomenal power by becoming the mentor to their own children. And that was the path I had to take with my son, was to be the person who put hard boundaries down and say, I will support you to this boundary, and when you overstep it, you're on your own, right? But there had to be a boundary where it was like, I will even step in at that point and say enough's enough. But on the other hand, in the middle is me being mum. Mum is mum. No, today is you do what mum says kind of thing. On the other end, there was the mentoring, and it was like switching hats. But the mentoring part was where I had to put away all of my thoughts, feelings and beliefs deep in me so that I could hold space still for him. That whatever he wanted to talk about, I did not react. I did not judge. I did not give opinions, right? I did not give orders. I did not give suggestions. What I did do eventually was give options, right? If this is what you're going through, here are some options. How would you like to work through it? And what I would do is say, if this is your problem, here are the options you've got for working through it. And let him choose the options that worked for him. And I supported him through his choices. And through that, it made a phenomenal difference to the life that he lives now as a fully stable, emotionally intelligent adult without a criminal record. And that's not to judge those who have, because I know how easily he could have gone down that route. I know how very easily he could have done. And so for me, this is really where I want to just say, mums, you have the power. Whatever religion, whatever community, whatever poverty or financial wealthy state you are in, because this happens across all levels of wealth, right? And it happens across all countries. This is not just the UK. This is global. Teenagers are teenagers. And if there's one thing I've learned over the years, right, it's that life is guaranteed to change constantly. And yet the one thing that hasn't changed since the dawn of man on earth is the emotional cycle. That is my expertise. If I grab my book, the emotional cycle. This is how I helped my son learn emotional awareness. The emotional cycle, if you could see it, happy, sad, angry and depressed. And when life changes, what was it that changed? Internal thoughts, feelings and beliefs. This is where criminal activity begins. Thoughts, feelings and beliefs combined with changes in the outside world and influences. So this is my old working copy. I use this a lot on screen. So it's how we use these influences to help guide them to manage their own emotions and create a better future. So if you want a copy of this, it is Brain Unchained. I'm hoping you can see that the right way now around it. If not, I'll put a link in the chat below. But Brain Unchained, this is available on Amazon. So my name is Kay Reeve and I am an emotional awareness expert. So I hope that inspires parents out there today, not just mums. So I'm sorry, dads, but this does include you as well. This includes religious leaders, school teachers, employment leaders. It includes everybody. But I specifically would, in amongst that, like to tell mums that just as much as all of these leaders, you are a leader in your own home. You're a leader from the heart, and it's the heart where all these decisions begin. So let's get out there and change the world one mum at a time. I hope you all have a great week, and please let me know if there's anything I can do to support you in your journey. Thank you.